I'm delighted to say we're now joined by Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, a brilliant chef who's got another book out. Welcome. You've done about 20 books, haven't you?
About 20 books.
Yeah. So I'll show you...
Been doing it for too long.
Hugh's latest, here it is. It's called How to Eat 30 Plants a Week, 100 Recipes to Boost Your Health and Energy. And interestingly, as soon as I open it, I get to... There's more than 30 here. I get to about 80 different possibilities.
But on the inside cover, inside front cover and inside back cover, there are 200 plants, about 220 plants. And the first thing to notice is that you've heard of them all. I'm not asking people to go out and find obscure ingredients. I'm just saying the first thing to do is remember there are lots of great plants out there that you already like.
Yes.
We get into habits, don't we? We shop and cook in quite a limited way. So I'm just saying let's open our eyes to the absolute wonders of plant foods that are out there and to be enjoyed.
I think you'd agree with this, Yasmin. You're a great plant eater.
I watch all these old shows, and actually you don't age.
No, that's true.
That's because you're watching the old shows.
That's the trick. Now, Hugh's brought something in which the best thing any guest can do is bring in food.
I have.
Let's have a close look at what we got here.
These are my nutty, seedy clusters.
Watch the cameras come in really close. That's not because they want a close-up, it's because the crew want to eat it.
There's a chapter in the book called Plant Potions and Power Sprinkles. This is a great example because this is a cluster of nuts and seeds with a little bit of coconut oil, pinch of sugar, and
delicious.
And delicious served with fruit. But this is something you can put on your porridge. You can put it with fruit and yoghurt. Yeah. For the first time, I've actually turned them into little canapes to make them easy to eat with a slice of strawberry with a little nut cluster on the top.
Can I try one? I'm going to try.
Go for you went for the biggest one in the middle, Jeremy.
I
like that. Go for it.
And it also matches my shirt, so I'm going to try a Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall.
The crew are going to be very lucky if any of these are left.
This is they'll probably run over in the break. There we are. It's a nut canapé or canape, as my late mother-in-law always used to call them.
There are 6 different nuts and seeds in those clusters. 2 nuts, 4 seeds. And they'll each bring you different benefits. This is the point of 30 plants a week. There's an amazing bit of science, a study of 11,000 people, the American British Gut Health Project, that tried to find out what it was about diets that would have the best health outcomes. And they were comparing vegan, omnivore, and vegetarian diets, and they couldn't choose between them. And the only thing that came out, the very important thing that came out of the study was simply it didn't really matter which of these 3 mainstream diets you were following. The people who had the biggest diversity of their gut biome, which we now know is a predictor of key health outcomes, were the people who ate the most plants.
Wow.
And it goes straight up. Quite a lot of us are managing 10 or 12, one way or another, every week. But as you get up to 30, the rise in benefits for your health goes up and up. It continues after 30, but it sort of plateaus a bit. This is why 30 is the magic number.
I did a kind of lamb stew the other day, slow cooked, and I put mushrooms and whatnot, celery in. But I'm thinking it was in the oven, in a slow cooker for 6 hours. By that stage, you've lost all the goodness, have you?
Not necessarily.
Would you like to eat stuff raw?
Raw's great. I mean, actually, you get different benefits from raw and cooked, but cooking vegetables does bring out... Cooked tomatoes bring you a set of different benefits from raw tomatoes. You can almost count them as 2 different plants in your 30 a week. So cooking is good. It actually releases lots of nutrients, makes that lamb very tender. This is an omnivorous book. There is a chapter on meat and fish, but meat and fish served up with tons of plants.
So I'll just show you the recipe for what Hugh is serving now. I bet it's making your mouth water at home. Is the nutty seed cluster. And can I ask, it always goes wrong when you try to bind the nuts together using honey or something sugary. So how do you do it there?
Well, this is the non-vegan version, and it's a great trick. Obviously, it doesn't work if you're vegan, but great trick. A little bit of whisked egg white. Great for granola as well.
Really?
Mix it, so you've got your sugar or your little bit of sugar or honey and definitely a little bit of oil. I've used coconut oil. And then you mix all that together and you whisk up 1 egg white, mix it up with the nut clusters, and that gives you that excellent clumping.
Yeah.
So if you make it without the egg white, that's obviously vegan. It's still clusters, but they're probably not quite such tight little clumps.
We did something the other day about, why don't we eat more fruit? And we had a caller who's eating bananas and he'd run into trouble. Have a look.
Well, the lady who's there talking about bananas are full of potassium.
Yeah.
Potassium can give you a heart attack.
How many bananas were you eating a day? About 20?
About 12, yeah.
Well, of course you're going to have a heart attack if you do that. The item was actually about whether it's best to eat a banana like a corn on the cob. So you do it sideways. So it was a separate thing.
Why would you do that?
Because someone was seen doing it at a Taylor Swift concert or something. Yeah. I think it was an NFL game, sorry. It's the same thing. So...
Big numbers.
Yeah, too much of one thing is that... So your whole thing, I can see in your brilliant book, is to do with just spreading
Absolutely.
the range.
Spreading things around, reminding yourself that there are brilliant plants out there. We don't need to have too much of one or too much of another. And actually, the quantities that we're cooking in are more or less conventional. But even spices count as a plant in the sense that they bring you unique benefits. And if you like, the unique flavours of those spices represent the unique plant chemicals in each one that gives them those extraordinary different tastes. And that's what brings the benefit to your gut biome.
One day I want to cook for you my favourite vegetable, which I bet isn't in your book.
Oh, hang on,
might
go
be.
on.
Plantain.
Yes,
Spicy plantain.
I love a plantain. Savoury banana.
I'm looking for
And
it.
I've got the Ugandan recipe because I grew up there.
I can't see
Might
it.
not be on my plant list.
So that's a date.
Could it be on a tinned pulse?
No, it won't be under tinned pulse.
Could it be under summer berries?
No, it certainly won't be
Look
under
at
summer. I think in the next print run, I better get plantains in
You
there.
invite me to your cottage and I'll cook you that.
I do love plantains. I have friends from the Caribbean who cook fantastic
And
plantains.
the Ugandan recipe is the best because it's made with ground nuts.
Excellent. And
Wonderful.
spices too.
Wonderful. You could do a book just on plant. He's got 30. You could just do one about plantain.
31 we've got to now.
31. OK, so Hugh's book is called How to Eat 30 Plants a Week, and there's 100 recipes to boost our health and energy. Do stay with us. We'll just look at a couple of the other stories in the papers. And reform... I guess what Nigel Farage is trying to do here, Tim, is to say, right, the Conservative Party might be so destroyed by this election that Reform are then the right-wing party.
Well, I think one of the interesting things is I don't think the calling the early election has worked particularly well with Rishi Sunak. I think the idea of calling an early election is because your opponents aren't ready. Well, it doesn't seem to me that my party, the Conservative Party, was ready for the early election. But Reform really weren't ready either. They hadn't got money in place, they hadn't got candidates in place, Farage hadn't made his big decision. So the one thing that's gone right for Rishi Sunak is that Farage isn't leading Reform in this election, because if Farage had been leading Reform, he's just so much more potent than Richard Tice.
Is he not? I thought he was sort of leading it. He's turning up at all their press conferences.
He's not standing. He can't be an MP at the end of it, can he?
No,
And he's challenged Rishi Sunak to a debate. Well, look, if you want to debate the Prime Minister, at least stand yourself. You know.
So this is him. Well, let's just see Farage saying there's no difference between Labour and the Conservatives. And he was speaking in Kent. Have a look.
I'm trying to work out if you're seeking to destroy the Conservative Party or join it.
Oh, they've destroyed themselves. They don't need my help. I mean, that job's done already. What Conservative? Is there a Conservative Party? I hadn't spotted it. I mean, all I can see, really, are two big Social Democrat parties. I mean, if you look at economics and many, many other areas, I mean, the policies are virtually identical.
So, yeah, OK. Well, I don't know whether it matters that he's not standing in a seat. This is where I don't quite buy the sort of the wisdom, because he's freer to do all that stuff if he's not having to go down to Clacton.
He tried 7 times and he failed 7 times to be elected. Never forget that.
Yeah.
OK? So now he wants the power without the responsibility.
There's a standard of MP that's higher than Farage. With that, if you look at the Commons, you wouldn't say that.
Well, no, but I think if you're not got the guts... Actually, you know what? I feel a little sorry for Richard Tice being overshadowed by this man who's only interested in Nigel Farage.
What do you think, Hugh, about it?
I think if he wants to lead any sort of party of the right post-election, he's making a mistake not to stand. I agree. I think it's cowardly. He's going to be able to snipe from the sidelines. I mean, to say something like you can't see the Conservative Party, unfortunately you can see them, and we're going to see far too much of them and not enough, I would say, of the Green Party, which is the party that I support. And, you know, that's a party that had nearly 1 million votes at the last election. If you were a Tory, that would get you 23 MPs, by the way. That's how ridiculous the current electoral system is.
They got 1 MP and she's standing down, isn't she?
Yeah, but we have 4 MPs who are really in with a shout. We have 4 MPs.
Candidates.
I'm just projecting to the future, where on the 5th of July, I hope we have 4 candidates who are really in with a shout. We have some excellent other candidates who will definitely definitely give their opposition a run for their money. So Green Party's standing to do really well at this election.
I think the problem with the Green Party is it should be green, but Yasmin will agree with this, but I think some of what we've seen with it recently seems to be as interested in Gaza as green issues.
That's why
I think you've got to decide really what the identity of the party is, because there's plenty of people who are interested in environmental issues.
A mature party has to have policies across a whole range of subjects, don't they? They are not a one-issue. For example, they're the only party that's serious about taxing the wealthy. People who are worth £10 million or more would be taxed by the Green Party, and I do not see how any party can put the necessary reforms into the NHS and other public services unless they raise more money through taxation. And the Green Party is the only party that's got the courage to do that. Not by hitting people who are struggling, by the way. And the funny thing about people who are worth £10 million or more, there's an organisation called Patriotic Millionaires. They're on record, 70% more, plus of them are ready to be taxed more. They're prepared to pay more in tax.
Give their money away now if they want to.
They'd like to.
Nothing is stopping them, but they don't do it.
I think that what we need to see is policies that are realistic about the need to redirect wealth.
Let me cheer you up. Okay. I did a whole thing for the newspaper today, and I talked to young people.
We haven't got long, but
and most of them
on.
are voting Green because of what Caroline Lucas has said on Gaza.
One of the few people in Parliament with real integrity. Caroline Lucas has been wonderful, and there's a whole bunch of Green MPs who will be as good as her.
All right. Wow, it's good.
Keep saying MPs, I mean candidates. But
yeah. We hear you.
We know what you're saying.
Of course, the thing I'm going to add something myself now. Where were they when Just Stop Oil was stopping the roads? Because to me, if I think Green now, I think the radical bit of it, Just Stop Oil, is the most visible bit. And the Green Party decided to be a bit more, I don't know, just composed.
Well,
you didn't want to do that stuff.
Many people have stood out there. We're waiting to see if the next government is going to change the law so we can protest freely, peacefully, without being threatened with being thrown in jail.
Stop ambulances getting to hospital.
Well, no, but they weren't doing that. That's my point. They stayed out of it.
Driving in their cars.
Peaceful protest has to be a right under any government, and it's been eroded under this one, and that would change for sure under a Green government.
Yasmin, we don't know whether this will lead us into matters in the Middle East. I don't know this story, but the army set to allow recruits with autism or depression to join. Yasmin, is that a good idea?
Well, I think, I don't know what I think about this. I think it's really important that people who have had depression or have autism are not discriminated against. But I do think we have to be very careful because joining the army is a tough call. And so they'd have to be very, very careful about how they're trained, how they're treated. In principle, I'm all for it.
I read, and this was not just someone's opinion. It was a piece by a medical person who said if you had depression once, you're 50-50 likely to get it again. If you've had it twice, you're 99% likely to get it again.
But we're a long way from where we were 20 years ago.
But it's just that in warfare would be, I would think, probably one of the last things you'd want to do if you were feeling very upset.
I mean, the rejection, they're automatically rejected now.
Yeah.
And I don't think they should be.
No, maybe that's right.
I think to have a more realistic screening is appropriate. Now that we know so much more about mental health, it's a less binary issue now. It's not so black and white, very gradated. And people throughout society holding down extraordinary challenging jobs are brave enough to admit that they've had mental health issues.
Churchill had depression.
Yeah, no, fair
Serious
comment.
depression.
And you're right, maybe actually someone can have a very, very bad episode, get it under control and never suffer again. So story in the BBC website saying a council, you'll love this, Hugh, there's a council, usually it's Oxford Council, these stories, it's not in this occasion, wanting to serve only vegan food at events.
Well, my reaction to that is, why is this a story? Great for them. It
would mean no egg yolk, we'd have no nut clusters.
That's the egg white, but I can do
Egg white, sorry.
Look, vegan food is actually the most inclusive thing you can serve because everybody can eat it. It doesn't matter whether...
Not everyone lets it enjoy it quite so much.
That's a good point because, of course, it has to be good. It has to be made delicious. And this is actually probably the biggest issue with lots of food served at functions by councils and for meetings and that kind of stuff. Make it delicious. So, take a few recipes from my book, get some spices in there. But, a nice tray roast of roots, vegetables, pulses, spices.
With a bit of cheese, melted cheese on. Oh, no. We can't use melted cheese. What's the point of cauliflower cheese without cheese?
Hang on. You can get really good vegan cheese. And also, I think we have to respect people who make decisions, make choices about their diet based on principles. I'm still an omnivore, but I've always got time for people who make the choices about their food based on principles that matter to them. And all you're doing by serving vegan food at a council event is... If I have vegan guests, I cook vegan for everyone. It's just being more inclusive and respectful of the fact that it's very likely at those gatherings that there will be vegans.
OK.
So why not an opportunity...
Respect has to go both ways, though. Every time I seem to meet a vegan or a vegetarian, they go on and on about it. So that's the only thing they talk about.
I bet that just isn't true, Tim. You're just...
really
I bet it's not true.
It really is. It really is.
You're having
How
a
do you know if
it's a
someone's
cheap-
a vegan because they've told you?
No, that's cold
That's
water
an old
swimming.
joke,
That's
yeah.
cold water swimming,
Oh, OK.
which, by the way, I do quite a lot.
OK.
Don't
There we go.
confuse people.
We proved that one.
Talking about being vegan with talking about cold water swimming is an excellent pursuit, by the way.
Yeah, I think each to his own. What I don't want to do is if I want, I did cook
You
some
can
lovely
do without
lamb.
a sausage for one night of the week, can't you, Jeremy?
Well, no, you're right, I can. And baking cauliflower's good. What I don't want is pubs to say it's £14.
Yes.
You probably agree with that. £14 for baked cauliflower. I'm sorry.
Do you remember Marks?
Depends what else is on the plate, but if it's just baked cauliflower, I agree.
Do you remember Marks and Spencer's were selling little cauliflower florets a little while ago, and they were like £3 or £4, and...
What, per floret? You're just making stuff up now.
The story's there. Someone find it. It's an absolute story.
There's a story in the Times about a so-called pint-sized Picasso, meaning a young person who's selling his pictures for thousands. I think this lad, how old is this lad? He's 2 or 3 or something. He's really, really young. 2.5. And basically, he is painting. He's German. He's in Bavaria. And he's doing what all 2.5-year-olds do, but for some reason, the people are seeing a bit of order in it, and they're buying them. And we're heading into AI painting anyway. So I figure that this is just the way it's going now.
It is rather beautiful, the
not.
pictures in the paper. They are rather beautiful.
Have you heard of John Constable?
No.
You're talking about the guy who does the Haywayne and all. Listen,
Oh,
that's
no,
what a
sorry. I
painting
thought you were
is.
talking about this boy.
Yes.
I missed-
You're saying
yeah.
it. You're just
You're so traditional.
rubbishing the whole of
You are
modern
so
art, Farage.
traditional.
Anything that isn't
Oh my
figurative is
God.
not for you.
Just give you an oak tree.
If it doesn't look like a
and
photograph, it's not a
meadow,
painting.
Jeremy,
and
I
a
come from
horse.
Salisbury, the Salisbury Cathedral painting of Constable.
By Constable.
Yeah.
And Yasmin is even struggling. You have heard of him, haven't you?
Of course, I thought you were naming him.
No.
I
But
think
of
the
course,
jury's out on
trees
whether
and
this guy's really
horses
talented.
And
He might,
English
yeah.
countryside, fine. But actually, they can get a bit tedious.
OK. Well, Storm, you and I had a situation with a pig, didn't we?
Picasso.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. He sent in a picture for you, actually, Jeremy, and I took it home with
So
me.
it was a farmer in Britain who has a pig. They put a...
Was it not South Africa?
Oh, was it?
Yeah, yeah,
You're right, it
it's
was South
the
Africa.
pig's from South
and,
Africa.
And they attached a paintbrush to its mouth, and it was starting to create images.
It's very smart animals, pig.
Yeah, so
are,
you actually ended up with it in your house?
I quite like
pig
this
or the
form of
picture?
modern art.
We
I
couldn't-
quite
we
like
weren't
this
allowed to buy the
order.
pig.
Yeah,
You like-
I'm a big
you like
fan
it?
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, adds a bit of colour to your house. Why not?
OK, all right, I'm outvoted on that.
But Hugh kills them. I've watched it.
Well, this is a necessary precursor to eating meat, which I still do. But we've already discussed that we could all be eating
Don't
less
worry.
meat and more plants.
He's just thrown in a sliding tackle on you.
That's
in the
okay.
last
I take it. I'll
minute
take
of the
it.
game. Yeah.
Absolutely.